"The deed was signed yesterday," Rachel announced, holding the keys high like a trophy. "This house is mine now." Her voice sliced through the living room with the confidence of someone who believes they've already won. My son Edward stood beside her, tape measure in hand, calculating the space where they would place their new furniture. Furniture for my house. The house I purchased with my own two hands in 1997 when I sold my parents' ranch and started from scratch in a city I didn't know. But they didn't know that. Or perhaps they pretended not to know. Rachel walked to the living room as if breaking in expensive new shoes. She touched the walls, the curtains. She repositioned picture frames with 2 fingers, as though the dust of my life bothered her. "The gray sofa I saw at the store will go here," she said, gesturing broadly. "And over there, a modern floor lamp. This all has to change. Edward, this looks like something from the 80s. She glanced at me with that thin smile she reserved for moments when she wanted to wound without raising her voice. "You should start packing your things. Olivia, the movers are coming on Monday. We'll find you something small. Don't worry. Something more appropriate for your age." Edward said nothing. He just measured. He just nodded. He just avoided my eyes. My son, the boy I carried in my arms up these very stairs when he had a fever. The one who cried in my lap when his father died. Now he held a tape measure and calculated the space where I no longer fit. I swallowed hard. I wouldn't cry in front of her. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Rachel took out her phone and started taking pictures. "For the interior designer," she explained, "we want this to be flawless. A house like this deserves a complete renovation." She paused in front of the large window, the one overlooking the park, the one I've cleaned every Saturday for 28 years. "I'm going to put large plants here," she said, "the kind you see in magazines. And maybe change the windows. These are very old." I felt a lump form in my throat, but I didn't move from my chair. I sat in the armchair where my husband read the newspaper every morning, where my daughter Christine did her homework before she left to study abroad, where I sewed, where I cried, where I prayed. Rachel wanted to erase it all. She wanted to turn my history into a catalog photograph. Edward rolled up the tape measure and walked over to his wife. "Do you think we should change the floor too?" he asked. Rachel nodded enthusiastically. "Obviously. This wood floor is all scratched. We're going to install white porcelain tile, modern, clean." I stared at the scratches on the floor. Each one had a story. That one from when Edward dragged his new bicycle through the house. That other one from when the pot of Christmas dew fell. Rachel wanted to cover my memories with white porcelain. "And you, Olivia? Do you have family you can stay with?" Rachel asked without looking at me. "Because we really don't want this to be awkward for anyone. Edward and I need our space. We're a young family. We need privacy. A young family." As if I were an old piece of furniture cluttering up her modern decoration. As if being 65 made me invisible, expendable. Edward finally looked at me. "Mom, this is for the best. The house is too big for you alone. You're always complaining about the stairs. And Rachel is right. We need our space. Besides, it's all settled. The deed is signed. It's legal." His voice sounded rehearsed, as though he had repeated those words in a mirror until they sounded convincing. But I knew my son. I recognized the way he blinked when he was lying, that almost invisible tremor in his jaw. Rachel resumed walking through the room, marking spots for furniture with masking tape. Was she talking to herself? Or maybe to Edward? I don't know. I stopped listening to her, my eyes fixed on the shelf where I kept the photographs. My wedding, Edward's first day of school, Christine's graduation, my husband and I in front of the ranch the day we sold it. All those photographs were going to end up in a box in some small room Rachel considered appropriate for me. Then the doorbell rang, a long, insistent sound. Rachel frowned. "Who is it now?" she muttered, annoyed. Edward went to the door. I didn't move. I just waited. Something inside me, something small but firm, told me that doorbell was no accident, that something was about to change. I didn't know what, but I felt it the way you feel the air grow heavy before a storm. Edward opened the door, and I saw Mr. Morris, the building manager, tall, with his leather briefcase under his arm, wearing that serious expression he always had. "Good afternoon," he said in a firm voice. "I'm looking for Mrs. Rachel Salazar." Rachel walked over, still holding her phone, flashing that smile she used to impress people. "Yes, that's me. Is there a problem with the building?" Morris entered without smiling. He retrieved a folder from his briefcase. "I have to inform you of something urgent, ma'am, about the property." Rachel laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "I think there's a mistake, sir. I bought this property. I have the deed. Everything is in order." Morris opened the folder and removed several documents. He placed them on the coffee table, the table I had varnished 3 times in 28 years. "That is precisely the reason for my visit," he said. "The deed you have is fraudulent." The silence was immediate, absolute, as if someone had muted the world. Rachel's phone slipped from her grasp. Edward froze by the door. Morris looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something I didn't expect. Respect. "Mrs. Olivia," he continued, "you are the legitimate owner of this property since 1997. I have all the documents right here to prove it. Original deed, tax payments, utilities in your name, everything." Rachel turned pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I paid. I signed. I have papers." Morris shook his head. "You were the victim of a scam, ma'am. The person who sold you this house had no right to it. We've already filed a report with the authorities. But the legal owner, without any doubt, is Mrs. Olivia Morales." I looked at my son. His eyes were filled with something I couldn't decipher. Fear, guilt, confusion. Rachel dropped her phone. Her hand was shaking. "But we paid $120,000, she yelled. $120,000. It can't be a scam." Morris closed his briefcase. "I'm very sorry for your situation, but that doesn't change the legal reality. This house belongs to Mrs. Olivia. And if you need more proof, the building management has all the records since she bought the apartment 28 years ago." I just sat there, still, looking at the keys Rachel still clutched in her trembling hand. Keys that wouldn't open anything that belonged to her. Fake keys, like her smile, like her promises, like that world she constructed in my living room in less than an hour. Rachel dropped the keys on the table. The sound of metal on what echoed in the tense silence of the room. "But this makes no sense," she repeated, her voice now high-pitched, almost hysterical. "I have documents. I have proof. I signed before a notary. Edward, say something." My son ran a hand over his face. He looked like a man waking from a nightmare. "Mom," he whispered, you knew this was going to happen." I didn't answer right away. Morris was looking at me, waiting. Rachel was breathing fast, as if she couldn't get enough air. Edward was pale, his hands shaking. I just stayed there in my armchair, the same one I sat in the first night I came to this house. The first night after selling the ranch. The first night without my parents, without my land, with nothing but a new deed and the hope of starting over. 28 years ago, I remember the smell of fresh paint. I remember the boxes stacked in the hallway. I remember my husband carrying Edward, who was just 7, and telling him, "Look, son, this is our home. Your mom bought it with her own hard work." Never forget that. Edward had run through the empty rooms, screaming with excitement. "This is my house," he would shout. "My house." Now that same boy was looking at me like I was a stranger. "Mom," he repeated, louder this time, "you knew Rachel was being scammed, and you didn't say anything." I looked up. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I knew," I said calmly, "that no one can sell what isn't theirs. And this house is mine. It always was." Rachel exploded. "You knew, and you let us spend $120,000. You are a cruel old woman, a manipulator. Edward, your mother set a trap for us." Morris raised his hand, interrupting her. "Ma'am, control yourself. Mrs. Olivia has no responsibility for your bad business deal. You didn't verify the property. You didn't investigate. You didn't check with the building management. We have all the records. If you had simply asked, we would have told you the truth from day one." Edward sank into a chair. He buried his head in his hands. Rachel started pacing like a caged animal. "This is absurd," she kept saying. "Absurd. I'm going to sue. I'm going to get my money back. Someone is going to pay for this." Morris took another paper from his briefcase. "We've already filed a report with the district attorney," he informed them. "The person who sold you this property used false documents. He's a known criminal. He has at least 6 similar cases. You are just one more victim." Rachel collapsed onto the sofa she wanted to replace. The sofa where my husband died 5 years ago while taking a nap. I was in the kitchen making coffee. When I came back, he wasn't breathing. I called his name. I shook him. I cried on his chest until the paramedics arrived. That sofa held his shape, his scent, his absence. And Rachel had planned to throw out like trash. "Edward," Rachel said in a broken voice, "we had everything planned. We were going to live here. We were going to start our family here. And your mother knew. She knew and didn't say a word." My son lifted his head. His eyes were red. "Mom, why? Why didn't you stop us? Why did you let it get this far?" I got up from the armchair slowly. My knees creaked. 65 years is a heavy weight. I walked to the window where Rachel wanted to put her magazine plants. I looked out at the park. The same trees I've seen every morning for 28 years. The same benches where Edward played as a child. The same fountain where my husband kissed me the day we moved in. "Because I needed you to see Edward," I said without turning around. "I needed you to see who the woman you married really is. I needed you to understand what you have done to me for these past 3 years." The silence behind me was dense, heavy. I turned around. I looked at both of them. 3 years, I repeated. 3 years since you got married. 3 years in which I became the maid in my own house. The nuisance. The old woman who gets in the way. Rachel opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. "No," I said. "Now the owner of this house is speaking. The one who paid for every brick. The one who cleaned every corner. The one who cried in every room." Morris took a step back, giving me space. Edward stared at me with wide eyes, as if he didn't recognize me. "I remember the day you brought Rachel to meet me," I continued. "She showed up in a green dress, high heels, expensive perfume. She shook my hand like she was touching something dirty. I remember. She asked why I still lived here, why I hadn't moved into a nursing home. You laughed, Edward. You said it was a joke. But I saw her eyes and I knew." "Mom, that's not fair," Edward started. "Not fair." I yelled. "What's not fair is that you asked me to cook for your dinner parties while Rachel took credit for everything. What's not fair is that you sent me to bed early when your friends came over because my presence made them uncomfortable. What's not fair is that you forgot my birthday 3 years in a row, but you celebrated hers with a mariachi band and a 3-tier cake." Edward turned pale. Rachel stared at the floor. Morris awkwardly checked his documents. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. 28 years of silence were breaking. 28 years of swallowing humiliation, of pretending it didn't hurt, of being invisible in my own home. "And today," I continued, "today you came here with fake deed, with keys that opened nothing, with plans to erase me, to turn my life into modern decor, into white porcelain." I walked to the table where Morris had left the documents. I touched them. Thick paper, official, real. "I bought this house with the money from my parents' ranch," I said. $180,000. Everything they had, everything they left me, I sold it to come to the city, to give my family a better life. Your father, Christine. Edward had tears in his eyes. "Mom, I didn't know you paid for the house. I thought Rachel told me Dad had bought it, that you only lived here because Dad let you." I looked at Rachel. She avoided my gaze. "Of course," I said. "Of course she told you that. Because erasing women is easier than respecting them." Morris cleared his throat. "Mrs. Olivia, I need you to sign these documents. They are to ratify your ownership and to confirm that you never authorized any sale." I took the pen he offered. I signed. My hand did not tremble, not once. Rachel shot up from the sofa, as if pulled by a spring. "This can't be happening," she said, her voice now a desperate shriek. Edward, do something. Call someone. Call the lawyer. This has to be illegal. There has to be something we can do. My son fumbled for his phone with shaking hands, but Morris shook his head. You can call whoever you want, ma'am. The facts are not going to change. This property is registered in Olivia Morales' name since 1997. She is current on all her payments, taxes, utilities, maintenance, everything. There's absolutely nothing you can do legally. Rachel pointed a finger at me, accusing. You knew from the beginning that man was a scammer, and you let us sign. You let us pay. That's complicity. That's fraud. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to ruin you. I crossed my arms. Go ahead, I said calmly. Sue me for owning my own house. Sue me for not stopping your own greed. Sue me for existing in the space you wanted to steal. Edward dropped his phone. Mom, how can you be so cold? We just lost $120,000. We're ruined, and you're just standing there like it's nothing. I felt something break inside me, something that had been cracking for 3 years and finally shattered. Cold? I repeated. You call me cold? I walked toward him slowly. Edward took a step back. Cold. I said again, louder. Cold is the woman who raised you alone after your father died. Cold is the woman who sold her mother's jewelry to pay for your college. Cold is the woman who worked double shifts at the hospital so you wouldn't have to take out loans. Cold is the woman who cried alone in her room so you wouldn't see her weak. My voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't stop. Edward looked at me as if he was seeing me for the first time. I gave you everything. I continued. Everything. And when you married her, when you brought her here to live, I accepted it. I smiled. I said, welcome, because I thought my son had chosen well, that he had found a partner, a family. But what you found was a woman who only saw this house. She only saw what she could take. That's not true. Rachel screamed. I love Edward. I married him for love, not for his house, not for his money. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Then why, on the very day you got back from your honeymoon, did you ask me when I was moving out? Why did you suggest I look for a nursing home? Why did you say a woman my age shouldn't be living with a young couple? Rachel opened her mouth, but no words came out. Edward sat down again. He looked smaller, younger. Mom, he whispered. I didn't know Rachel said that to you. Of course you didn't know, I answered, because you never asked. You never asked me how I was, if I was comfortable, if I needed anything. You just assumed I was fine, that I would always be fine, because mothers are always fine, right? Mothers don't have feelings. They don't have dignity. They're just there, waiting to be useful. Morris put his documents away. Mrs. Olivia, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to leave. I've done my duty in informing you of the situation. If you need anything else, I'll be in the management office. And if they, he pointed at Rachel and Edward, try to cause you any problems, don't hesitate to call me. We have 24-hour security in the building. I nodded. Thank you, Morris. Thank you for being honest, for not lying to me, for treating me like what I am, the owner of my home. When the door closed behind Morris, the silence returned. But it was different now. It was a silence before an explosion. Rachel was breathing hard, her fists clenched. Edward had his head down, staring at the floor he wanted to replace with white porcelain. I stood before them, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power, control, justice. Rachel was the first to speak. Her voice was pure venom. You are a bitter old woman, she said. A resentful woman who can't stand to see her son happy. That's why you did this. That's why you set this trap for us. Because you can't stand that Edward loves me more than he loves you. I stepped toward her, so close I could see the smudged mascara under her eyes. A trap? I said slowly. You call it a trap that I own my house? You call it a trap that I existed before you, that this life was mine before you showed up with your high heels and your perfume and your plans to erase me? Edward got up, putting himself between us. Mom, please. Rachel, calm down. This has gotten out of control. We have to think clearly. We have to find the man who scammed us. We have to get our money back. I laughed again. Get your money back, I said. That's your only problem now, isn't it? Not that you humiliated your mother. Not that you tried to steal her home. Only that you lost money. It's not her home. Rachel screamed. It's just a house, just walls and windows. But we are her family, her son, her blood. And you chose the walls. You chose the bricks. You chose pride. I felt tears burn in my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. I didn't choose anything, I said. You chose. You chose when you decided I was in the way, when you planned to kick me out, when you measured my living room for your furniture, when you talked about me as if I wasn't even here, as if I didn't matter. Edward ran his hands through his hair. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't know Rachel had treated you badly. I thought everything was fine, that we were a happy family. A happy family? I repeated. In a happy family, Edward, you don't forget birthdays. You don't exclude your grandmother from family photos. You don't tell your mother to go to bed early because she makes the guests uncomfortable. You don't ask her to cook and then take the credit. You don't plan to steal her home. Rachel wiped her tears away angrily. I never wanted to steal anything. We just wanted our own house, our own space. It's normal. It's what young couples do. I stared at her. If you wanted your own space, you could have bought one with your own money somewhere else. But no, you wanted this place, my place, because it was easier, because you thought I wouldn't say anything, that I would just pack my things and disappear like a good, obedient old woman. Just then, the doorbell rang again. The three of us froze. Edward went to open it. It was Isabel, my neighbor from upstairs. She was holding a tray covered in aluminum foil. Olivia, I called earlier, but you didn't answer. I brought you some tamales. I know today is a hard day for you. She looked at Rachel and Edward. Oh, you have visitors. I'm sorry. No, Isabel, come in, I said. They were just leaving. Isabel came in and left the tray in the kitchen. She stood there, taking in the scene. The tape measure on the floor, the documents on the table, Rachel's tears, Edward's pale face. Isabel was 70. She had lived in the building since it was built. She knew everything. She saw everything. Olivia, she asked softly, are you okay? Did something happen? I nodded. Yes, Isabel. Something happened. The truth happened. Isabel looked at Rachel with a hard expression. Ah, I see. They already told you the deed was fake, right? Rachel and Edward looked at her, stunned. You knew? Edward asked. Isabel nodded. The whole building knew, kid. Morris warned us 2 weeks ago that someone was trying to sell properties that didn't belong to them. Your mother told us not to say anything. She said she wanted to see how far you two would go. And now we see. Edward looked at me, his face full of disbelief. You told the neighbors not to talk? You set this whole thing up. Set up, I said, is a big word. I just didn't stop your fall. There's a big difference. Isabel put her purse on the kitchen table and crossed her arms. Olivia didn't set up anything, she said firmly. She just protected herself. When Morris told us there was a scammer selling fake deeds, your mother asked us that if anyone asked about her or this apartment, we should tell the truth. Nothing more, just the truth. Rachel pointed a shaky finger at her. But nobody told us anything. Nobody warned us. Isabel looked at her coldly. Because nobody asked us, ma'am. You never came to the management office. You never verified with the building manager. You never knocked on a single door to confirm who the real owner was. You just believed a stranger and paid $120,000 without investigating anything. Edward sank into a chair. He put his head in his hands. $120,000, he mumbled. All my savings. Everything. Isabel clicked her tongue. Well, you should have asked first, kid. I've known your mother since she moved into this building. 28 years. I saw her show up her boxes. A widow with 2 young children. I saw her work double shifts at the hospital. I saw her cry when your father died. I saw her raise you. And now you come here with this woman and try to kick her out of her own house? What kind of son does that? Rachel stood up. That's enough. We're not going to stand here and be judged by some nosy old woman. Edward, let's go. We're going to talk to a lawyer. This isn't over. Isabel laughed. Go talk to 1,000 lawyers if you want. Olivia's documents are legal. Yours is garbage. End of story. Rachel grabbed her purse in a fury and stormed toward the door. Edward got up slowly, looking at me. Mom, he whispered, I need time to process this, to understand. I don't know what to say to you right now. You don't have to say anything, I replied. You already said everything with your actions, with your silence, with your complicity. Edward opened his mouth as if to respond, but Rachel yanked him by the arm. Let's go, she ordered. They left. The door slammed shut. The silence that remained was different. No longer tense, just empty. Isabel hugged me. Oh, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I know he's your son. I know it hurts. I rested my head on her shoulder. Isabel smelled like cinnamon and lavender soap. She smelled like kindness, like truth. It hurts, I admitted. It hurts so much. But I couldn't keep letting them walk all over me. I couldn't keep being invisible in my own home. Isabel held me tighter. You did the right thing. Sometimes love is also about setting boundaries. It's also about saying enough. We sat on the sofa. Isabel poured coffee from my coffee pot, the one I bought in 1998. 2 cups. No sugar for me. 2 spoons for her. 28 years of being neighbors. You learn those things. Olivia, she said after a long silence, what are you going to do now? I shrugged. I don't know. I just know that this house is mine, that I'm not leaving, that I'm not going to let anyone take what's mine. Isabel nodded. Good, because this house has your history in every corner, and nobody has a right to erase it. We drank our coffee in silence. I could hear the clock on the wall, the clock my husband had hung on the very first day, the clock that had marked every second of our lives here, every joy, every sorrow, every moment. The next morning, I got a call. It was Elvira, the building's lawyer. Mrs. Olivia, I need you to come to my office. There are some documents you need to sign, and there's something else you need to know. I arrived at 10 o'clock in the morning. Elvira's office was full of files. I sat across from her desk. She pushed a folder toward me. Mrs. Olivia, we investigated your daughter-in-law's case further. The man who sold him the fake deed is named Leonardo Vargas. He has a record. He has scammed at least 15 families in the last 2 years. Always the same method. He forges deeds for properties that are occupied by elderly people. He tells naive buyers that the original owners are about to move or that they're already dead. I felt a chill. So, Rachel isn't the only victim? Elvira shook her head. No, but your case is different because you are here. You're alive. You have all your documents in order. In the other cases, some properties really did belong to deceased people, and the families didn't have clear paperwork. There were long lawsuits, evictions. It was terrible. I opened the folder. There were photos of Leonardo Vargas, a man in his 40s, well-dressed, kind smile. The kind of person you would trust. Elvira continued. The police already have a warrant for his arrest, but he fled. He's probably out of the country. The money your daughter-in-law paid is likely gone. It was transferred to overseas accounts. Lost. I closed the folder. So, Rachel lost everything. Elvira nodded. I'm afraid so. Legally, you have no responsibility. You were not obligated to warn them. You did not participate in the fraud. Your only fault, if you can even call it that, was not stopping something that wasn't your responsibility to stop. I left Elvira's office with a weight in my chest. $120,000. All of my son's savings, lost because of greed, because of carelessness, because of wanting something that didn't belong to them, but also because of my silence, because of my decision not to warn them, to let them fall. I walked through the park in front of the building. The same trees, the same benches. I sat where I used to sit with my husband. I closed my eyes. Did I do the right thing? I wondered aloud. One part of me said yes. Another part whispered doubts. That night, while I was making dinner, I found something. I was putting away some plates when I saw a box in the back of the cabinet. A wooden box I hadn't opened in years. I took it down carefully. Inside were letters. Letters from my husband. He had written them during the months before he died, when he knew the cancer was winning, when he knew he would be leaving me alone. I picked one at random. It was dated 3 months before his death. My dearest Olivia, the letter said in his slanted handwriting, "If you're reading this, it's because I'm not with you anymore. Forgive me for leaving you. Forgive me for not being able to stay with you longer. But I need you to know something important. This house is your fortress. You bought it. You paid for it with your parents' money, with your sacrifice. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Never let them take it from you. And if someday our children forget what you did for them, remind them, not with anger, but with truth. The truth always wins, my love. Always." Tears fell onto the paper, staining the old ink. My husband knew. He knew that someday I would need to remember. I would need strength. I kept reading. "Olivia," the letter continued, "I know you are strong, stronger than you even know. You raised our children practically alone while I was sick. You worked until you were exhausted. You never complained. That strength doesn't leave you just because I'm gone. It's still there. Use it. Protect yourself. Because people forget. Even children forget. Not out of malice, but out of distraction, out of selfishness. Your job is to remind them who you are, not with sweet words, but with clear boundaries." I folded the letter carefully. My husband had left me more than just memories. He had left me permission. Permission to be strong, to defend myself, to not disappear. I opened another letter. This one was shorter. "Olivia, if anyone tries to take this house from you, fight. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's family. The house isn't just bricks. It's your dignity. It's your history. It's the proof that you existed, that you worked, that you loved. Don't give it up. Ever." I put the letters back in the box. I placed it on my nightstand where I could see it every morning, every night, where it would remind me why I had done what I did, why I had let Edward and Rachel fall into the trap. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, out of survival, out of justice. The next day, Edward showed up alone. He rang the doorbell at noon. I opened the door and found him looking haggard. Deep dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wrinkled clothes. "Mom," he said in a hoarse voice, "can I come in? I'm not staying long. I need to talk to you." I stepped aside. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't offer a seat. I just waited, standing in the middle of the living room. Edward walked to the window, the same window where Rachel had planned to put her magazine plants. "Rachel left," he said without looking at me. "She went to her mother's house. She says she can't look at me right now. She says this is all my fault for not verifying property, for trusting the seller, for not asking you." I waited. I said nothing. Edward turned to me. "You were right, Mom, about everything. Rachel only wanted the house. She never respected you. And I was a coward, an idiot, a bad son." His voice broke. Edward sank onto the sofa, the same sofa where his father had died, where I had cried, where we had a family before Rachel came to redecorate everything. "I lost everything, Mom," he whispered. "Everything. $120,000. My savings, my marriage, your respect. Everything." I stood there, my arms crossed. "You didn't lose my respect, Edward. You gave it away. There's a difference." He looked up. His eyes were red, swollen. He had the look of a lost child. The child he had been, the child I had raised alone after his father got sick. "Mom, I don't know how all this happened," he said. "I don't know at what point I stopped seeing you, stopped hearing you. Rachel had a way of talking, of convincing me. She said you were old-fashioned, that you didn't understand modern relationships, that mothers-in-law should give young couples space. And I believed her. God, I believed all of it." I sat down across from him, but I kept my distance. "Modern relationships," I repeated. "Is that what they call disrespect now? Ingratitude? Forgetting where you come from and who raised you?" Edward ran his hands over his face. "I remember, Mom. I remember everything. how you worked double shifts at the hospital, how you come home so tired you could barely walk, but you still made dinner, how you sold grandma's jewelry to pay for my college, how you cried when I graduated. I remember all of it. But Rachel had this way of making all of that seem insignificant, like it was just your obligation, like you.